How's everyone doing this morning? Monday, May 4th. May the Force be with you today if you're a Star Wars person. Welcome. I see some names that I recognize. I see some names that I don't recognize. So let us know where you're from, what your name is, if you're new to these webinars, and if you do mermaiding currently at your facility. Do you permit it? Do you prohibit it? What is the situation like at your facility? Are mermaid tails loved? Are they hated? So my name's Katie. We're going to have a little bit of a pre-show this morning before Dominique joins us in about 30 minutes. So welcome. Hi, Katie from Ottawa. Funny, I was looking at the webinar recording from last week, and you mentioned the throwback with John Napier. I think when I first met John Napier out here in Alberta, we realized that I had swam when he was lifeguarding. I swam when he was lifeguarding at the RA Center near Billings Bridge when I was little. So we've come full circle that we both work in aquatics in Alberta. Welcome, welcome. Katie thinks Ottawa pools don't allow mermaid tails. City of Edmonton has done the same thing. Other locations in Alberta, I know they do have a mermaid safety protocol. And actually, I'm just realizing I should have asked some of the facilities I know to send me their mermaid swim test. That would be a good resource to also put on the show notes, is there are different facilities that have created mermaid swim tests. So disorienting entry, kicking the tail off, that can be a nice way to permit mermaiding at your facility. So we've got Carolyn from Long Island, no mermaid programming near you. Okay. Alana's here from Brillion, Wisconsin. Mandy's here from Tipton, Iowa. No programming here, but it's something we've been really wanting to add. I think it's something that everybody recognizes is an untapped resource. So the show notes for today, I will pop those in the chat box in a moment, but there's so many great ideas and resources on the show notes, including FinFun, one of the main brands that makes mermaid tails. They've got Pinterest boards for birthday parties that are pretty spectacular. Angela's here. She's from Maryland. They don't do mermaid, but it sounds interesting. The kids love to bring their mermaid tails to the pools. So I should let you guys know, Angela was our winner on Friday for the free giveaway. We did a free giveaway registration from the Canadian Red Cross to the virtual Saskatchewan and Manitoba Aquatic Conference that's happening next week. So Angela was the lucky winner, and so she'll get a free registration to that 2-day conference that is open to anybody who is interested. $70 Canadian gets you 2 days full of webinars with various speakers, as well as some swag. So I will pop that link in the chat box. Excellent. Angela says she registered today. Evan says, you mermaid at the JJ Parr Aquatic Center in Cold Lake. I like that. We mermaid. Kayla from Greenville, Illinois. No mermaid programming, but we're always looking for new ideas. So let me go ahead and put the show notes in the chat box for today. I don't think I've ever spent more time on show notes this morning. So I was pinning and hosting so many different links on the show notes. I think you guys will see if you scroll down on the show notes, so many ideas. Literally, you could go to lunch after this session and sit down and put together a birthday party offering, a swimming lesson program, a no school Friday or a PD day program, a summer camp program. And many of those we're not going to use this year, obviously, but so many good ideas. Let me also post the link for the conference. Angela's attending. I will be presenting. It is next week. You don't have to attend in live time. You can also watch the recordings. I believe the recordings will be available for 60 days after the sessions. So lots of great speakers next week. I know I have to get organized this week, and my time management skills have not been so great the last week or two. I don't know if anyone else is like that. I kind of have reached a plateau where I need to get better into a schedule. I'm kind of working all the time in bits and bobs, and that's not so good. and I'm not really getting a lot done. I feel like I'm working a lot, but it's not very productive. So I need to get back into more intensive work periods and then more refreshing breaks. So that's something I know I have to work on this week, because I need to get that conference session done for next week, as well as the show notes from last Wednesday and Friday are still lingering for me. I had them half done, then I was doing some YouTube edits, and it's just taking a little bit longer. Evan is saying they also do mermaid birthday parties. Lots of fun. If you guys look at the show notes that I've pinned in the chat box, you'll see that the Strathcona County, which most Albertans will know is Sherwood Park on the east side of Edmonton, they have a very robust birthday party program with crafts. So they can make like a bath bomb, they can make a crown, they can make a picture frame. They actually have a professional mermaid come and host the birthday party. They've bought an inflatable shell for $100 to do photo shoots. So we'll see lots of different ways you can do it at your facility. It may seem like a lot of work up front, maybe, $300 and a day's worth of work, but I think the revenue opportunities and the excitement and the fact that you can photograph and support your facility with additional revenue and excitement in the community. Not post-COVID. I think this is more of a 2021, realistically, things that you could roll out. But mermaiding is not going anywhere, and we can either grab the bull by the horns, address it, provide a safe offering, or we ignore it, and then we have potential dangerous situations. So if you're just joining us, let me know where you're from. Let me know, do you do mermaid programs at your facility? Do you not allow mermaid tails at your facility? Do you have safety concerns? I was just saying one of the things I will grab for the show notes in the next few days is there are facilities in Alberta with mermaid swim tests. So that is a swim test that if you brought your mermaid tail to the facility, you are only permitted to use it if you can show the lifeguards that you can do a disorienting entry, that you can self-orient to stand up in shallow water, that you can get yourself out of the side of the pool safely, that you can kick off the tail. So I will grab some of those mermaid swim tests in the next few days and upload them on the show notes. If you look at the show notes right now, there are oodles and oodles of resources to get your brain thinking about these programs. So let's just see who else is here. Paul, so doesn't allow them at the facility in Nevada. Understandable. They are a monofin. They can be quite dangerous if we don't ensure that there is a safe protocol and that our swimmers are competent. I'm sure most of you have seen that video online that was viral last summer. It's an above ground pool with two girls, maybe 8 and 9, 9 and 10, and one of them is having difficulty self-orienting with the tail on her feet, and the mom has to reach into the above ground pool and pull the kid upright. So definitely that's our nightmare as a lifeguard, to have both legs, right, in a monofin that they can't orient and stand up. So Heidi is here from Lindsay, Ontario. They have mermaid programs. So if anybody has any resources that they'd love to share on the show notes, they are open source, so different facilities can share them. If you have anything that you're willing to share, please send me an email and I'll add it to the show notes and give you full credit. But it's nice to have different resources that people can draw upon. So let us know, Lindsay, is your mermaid program 1 day a week? Is it a session, multiple weeks? Is it a birthday party format? Is it a camp format? Is it a special event format? Let us know in the chat box. So we're just, today's all about mermaids. We're also going to talk a little bit about the Lifeguard Games. So those of you familiar in Alberta with the Lifeguard Games concept, and those of you not familiar, getting some ideas about how we can use a little bit of competition between facilities or between staff members or teams to get excited about staying in shape, training for in-service, practicing rescues, practicing things like that. So welcome if you're just joining us. My name is Katie. We're doing a little bit of a pre-show before Dominique starts slightly after the hour. So we have about 20 minutes. Let me know if you do mermaiding at your facility, if you prohibit it, or the other thing I want to get some ideas, what are your favorite mermaid Instagram accounts? So I want to update the show notes with all the best mermaid Instagram accounts. I know there's some really, really amazing mermaids out there actually making a profession out of being a professional mermaid. So think about a Disney princess who is booked for birthday parties, who is booked for Halloween, who is booked for special events, fairs, carnivals, that sort of thing. I follow one mermaid on Instagram. She does the same thing. She shows up to city events. She's booked for different beach events, pool events, birthday parties, kind of like celebrity show and tell. She sets up a mermaid stage in somebody's driveway. If it's a mermaid birthday party, she brings a little inflatable pool for photos with the kids, mermaid crafts, mermaid photo shoots, right? There's lots of ways that you can incorporate mermaiding at your pool. Dominique will talk safety today a lot about the programs and how you can ensure that you are comfortable offering it at your facility. But it's an easy way to generate some revenue, and people are willing to pay a premium for mermaiding. It's very trendy and it's very much a hot commodity. So Paul is saying they run a regional lifeguard games, and it's the best thing the region has done. The only time I've ever have staff ask to get in the water and practice rescues is before the lifeguard games. So that's great to hear. Paul, I think you're in Nevada in the United States, so that's amazing to hear that that's worked in your community. Let us know if there's any other details you'd like to give us. Is it a one-day event? Is it an afternoon event? Once a year? How often is it? Hannah is from JJ Parr in Cold Lake. They're in the process of launching mermaid programs, but we only had the opportunity to run a single birthday party, and you were the mermaid. So hopefully that was good. Did you get your tails from FinFun, or what kind of resources did you use to put together the birthday party? Let us know. If you're just joining us, we're talking mermaiding and mermaid parties, Instagram accounts, any resources that you love. The show notes for today are already pinned in the chat box. I would encourage you to go ahead and click on those show notes, because you will see that there are a ton of resources today on those show notes. I spent probably 2 hours this morning linking, attaching, highlighting, lots and lots of good resources there. I also want to let you guys know, so Angela, I mentioned already, Angela from Maryland, she was the winner on Friday for the giveaway of the virtual Saskatchewan and Manitoba Aquatic Conference session. So that's coming up next week. The link is in the chat box. If you've just joined us, you can scroll up and have a look at that conference. 2 days of webinars next week for $70 Canadian. I also see that Ben Zimmerman is here. So I did a giveaway on our Facebook page this Saturday, and I gave away a Imperial Certified Pool Operator course registration. And before you guys think that everything I do is successful, I wanted to share that this was the least successful giveaway I've ever done. So Ben is ultra lucky. Ben didn't have a lot of competition, which was great for Ben, but was so funny to me that I ran a competition for a $450 product, and I had 2 people compete in the competition or the giveaway on Saturday. So that was a bit odd. So congrats to Ben. He's going to be in my next virtual certified pool operator course. He won a free registration. That was on our Facebook page. And believe me, I do not give these away. This is the first one I've given away this year, and probably the only one I will give away this year. So congrats to Ben. Jill is here from Ames, Iowa. They have a local company that specializes in princess parties. So they have special custom swimsuits for pool parties and include both the Little Mermaid and some of her mermaid friends. That sounds amazing, Jill. Like, do they have there's the crab, right? I don't know, Sebastian. There's Sebastian, there's the crab, there's the seagull. It's been a while since I've watched. But I know there was when I lived in Northern Alberta, there was a princess birthday parties tea concept. So there was a lady who would do a high tea. For those of you in the United States, Canada used to be a British colony. So we have a tradition still here in Canada of high tea and some vestigial British traditions. So her birthday party concept was princess party teas, or princess tea parties. And Ariel would come and Mulan would come, and they would all have their hair done up and the full costumes from Disney World, the expensive ones. So you could easily do the same thing at your pool, right? You could have pool party for mermaids, princesses, all kinds of things like that. Hannah is saying that they get their fins from FinFun. they've been pulling from their resources and throwing in some Red Cross swim lesson ideas. I like that. So it's not just a fun program, but there's also some instruction involved in that. All of our lifeguards were in the process of going through their 8-week transformation when we closed in March. So that's kind of neat. You could show on Instagram or Facebook or on your social media. I like that, how you've said we're transforming the staff into mermaids and creating some excitement for the kids. The kids at your pool, let's say you're closing an open swim or a free swim, if there were some sneak peeks where the kids spot mermaids out in the pool, that could be kind of fun. Secret project, you could do a lot of fun things to get engagement with your mermaid programming. So welcome. If you're just joining us, we're talking Mermaid today. Is anyone doing mermaid programming? Is anyone else doing a lifeguard competition at their facility? Is it internal? Do you have a fitness month? Do you have a competition once a year? Do you have a competition between shifts or between seasons or between other pools in your location, other departments? What sort of things do you do to get staff engaged in fitness and staying active during a normal year, let's say, during a normal year in aquatics? Let us know. The show notes are pinned in the chat box. I will also do a brief mention. We have about 13, 14 minutes before we start. Those of you in Alberta, next week we will be hosting the Alberta Association of Aquatic Professionals meeting. Is their meeting, but we're hosting it on Click Meeting, this webinar platform. So to my Alberta colleagues, if you want to join us next week on Monday, May 11th, Dominique and the other AAAP people will be hosting Kevin Duronsik from the Alberta Health Services. He'll be providing an update. So if you want to join a 1-hour webinar next week, specifically Alberta people, I've popped the registration link in the chat box. So that will be our Alberta Association of Aquatic Professionals. Typically, we have 2 meetings a year. Spring meeting is the interprovincial meeting, so the whole province. And then in November, there's typically both the North and the South meeting. So the in-person meeting is not happening next week, May 11th, but they have decided to take it online, and I have offered to host it on Click Meeting so that anybody can attend and that we can grab that recording to post. Please just ensure if you're registering that you understand that only Albertans will be eligible for prizes and that only kind of chat box comments and anything like that will be Albertan and Alberta focused. But we're not restricting it. So just make sure that you understand it is an Alberta specific meeting, but we'd love to have you. That will be next week. If you're just joining us, welcome. It's Monday, May 4th. We're talking lifeguard games. We're talking mermaiding. Instagram and mermaids is a big one. So I'm going to share one of my favorite mermaid Instagram accounts. I just follow it to get ideas, ways to be creative with marketing. So let me put that in the chat box. One moment. So I like Jules, the Pink Mermaid. I find her marketing style kind of interesting to watch. Yes, happy Star Wars Day, Paul. We did post some mermaid kind of May the Force be with you, fourth different pictures on Facebook. So I've just posted in the chat box one of the Instagram accounts that I like to follow for the professional mermaids. So that gives me ideas. Sometimes we tend to think of mermaiding as I thought of mermaiding as a very narrow kind of program offering. But by following her on Instagram, I've gotten different ideas in terms of ways that you can transition aquatic programs, aquatic services. So she goes to fairs. She does do birthday parties and camps and special events. I should also post, I'll find the link somewhere. When I was in Scottsdale last summer, actually, the Fairmont in Scottsdale, Arizona, the Fairmont Princess, they actually had an in-house mermaid for a week at that Fairmont property. So when I was visiting, they had posters everywhere for the hotel guests to see that the mermaid in residence was at the Fairmont all week and what activities she'd be running. So she would be doing, let's say, a sing-along at 11 a.m., or she might do a mermaid lesson at 2 o'clock, or she might show up for photos on Wednesday at 3 p.m. So that was really cute. I've never seen that anywhere else, that a hotel, this was a very large Fairmont hotel, had a mermaid in residence for the whole week that I was visiting. It was kind of neat. So I'll look for those photos and add that to the show notes as well, because I think the sky is the limit in terms of how you incorporate mermaiding. I also want to highlight, I see Renee is here from Wisconsin. The resources Renee sent me as well that some of you are familiar with, those are also on the show notes. So she has graciously provided those to us. Make sure you scroll down on the show notes that are pinned in the chat box, and you'll see that a really interesting program that they are doing is also listed on the show notes. So welcome, welcome as we're coming in. We still have about 10 minutes. Be interested to know, even just a yes or no, who's doing mermaiding at your pool. So even if you just type in the chat box, yes, we are, or no, we're not, would be good to hear kind of a sense of who is doing mermaiding programming at their facility. Good morning, Christine. No to mermaiding. Just a quick yes or no from you guys would be helpful. So no to Elizabeth. It's definitely a trend, but that doesn't mean, as we know in aquatics, we jump on all the trends, right? Very few people are necessarily doing aqua yoga or aqua pole or aqua spinning, right? We tend to stick with programs we're familiar with. So lots of no's. No in Oshawa. Josiah says that they did in the past, but not anymore. Renee is saying they started with Fin Fun fins, but switched to Suntails as the plastic holds up better in a tile pool. I could see that. Jean says no in Massachusetts. No, Victor says. Josiah is saying the tails were cheap and they broke after a while. So I think that's one of the things Dominique might address in terms of whether you purchase tails that you rent out or whether your program requires that the participant buy their own tail, because they're probably not a item that will last under a lot of use, persistent use, and that it's best really for kids to have their own based on their size, their height, their weight. Yes, that does change the program price, but something to consider. Larissa says that they've had a mermaid approach us to do some programs in Portland, so that could be interesting. Maybe that takes some of the load of work off of you, Larissa, if you partner with the Mermaid and then they do more of the advertising and then bringing in clients. You take part of the revenue or the pool space and discuss safety concerns. That could be a good option. Mike says no to mermaiding. Renee is saying the original Fin Fun had a plexiglass piece inside. Now they have a plastic insert, which lasts a bit better. So being aware that obviously different products evolve over time. Christina's saying they worked in places where the space takes up too much free swim space. So the concern is to get as many people in to use it as possible. So certainly with mermaiding, there is a concern, right, that the tail might flop in my face if there's a kid over here, and it does take up a lot of space. So I think that's a good, we'll have a Q&A at the end with Dominique, our presenter, and certainly she can let us know off the cuff any solutions or strategies that she's found in terms of the space for programming mermaiding. And I think it's going to be different at each facility. You might say, maybe we have to give 25 meters, 25 yards. Maybe we do a 12-meter, 12-yard section in the pool, and it's width-wise, different options. So lots of people just joining us. If you're here, let me know. Mermaiding, do you do it at your facility? Have you had any success with either a swimming program, birthday parties, camp, no school day programming, once per week programming? Do you love it? Do you hate it? Have you had any negative experiences trying to run it? Has it caused a safety issue at your pool that you didn't know how to address? Has it been, you don't have the pool space to offer something new? Let us know what's working where you are, and your location in North America or around the world is helpful. So we will start in a few minutes. Welcome. We had quite a few people pick up last-minute registration for this session. I know it's been a much requested topic, but I also know it's Monday, and Monday for me is a bit rough to get everything going. So thanks to those of you that have been able to make it here and join us. I'm just scrolling to see lots of people typing. Let us know what works for you. The show notes are pinned in the chat box, so go ahead and click on the show notes. You'll be able to see a lot of the resources, including the PowerPoint slides that Dominique will be showing that I will load once we get started. We've also got the video links. So those of you that were here in the past when we had some difficulties with video streaming, I found that screen sharing the video will work better. So I plan to do that so Dominique can comment on the video when we get to those plays. But they're also linked on the show notes. So if you prefer to play the video link in your browser at your location in silent, in parallel to the presentation, you're also welcome to do that. Just scrolling back. So Anne Marie is saying they'd like to try one and gather the information to present it to your naysaying supervisor. I feel you. That is part of aquatics that I don't miss, working for myself. It always seems like people just say no without even considering the idea. Jamie is saying that they haven't done it yet, but they'd like to add it. The current manager is worried about teaching of holding your breath for too long. Absolutely, that's a concern. But I think if we teach it where it's more swimming up and down as opposed to just underwater, I think we can work with that. And I'm sure Dominique will have some tips on how to approach that with kids of a certain age. Thank you, Glenn, for saying that about the webinars. Mahalo from Hawaii. Stephanie is saying they don't offer classes for guests, but you occasionally have a mermaid come in and swim. It's more of what we consider a character appearance. I like that. That's fun. Hi, Kim. Kim from Hawkesbury, St. Savel, Quebec. She was a panelist back in March. So she was one of the people who asked for lifeguard games as a topic. And thankfully, Dominique kindly agreed. So Kim was the original person who said, I want to find the lady who did the lifeguard games and I want her to present. So this is the culmination of several weeks of coordinating. Liz Schmidt is saying that they offer Mermaid Camp for the first time this summer. That's great, Liz. If you want to pop a link to your program in the chat box so people can see how you're advertising it, the pricing, the format, is it a full day? Is it a half day? Is it a couple hours? Let us know, because I think this is all about information and idea sharing. Hello, Alyssa from the Cayman Islands. I don't think we've had anyone from the Cayman Islands before. Welcome. Multiple islands, so let us know which island you're on, which facility. Hello, Kelly's here from Phoenix. Cheryl's here from Duluth, Minnesota. Ashlyn's here from Esterhazy, Saskatchewan. Forgive me, I hope that's correct. So welcome those of you who are just joining us. We will start in 1 or 2 minutes. I will introduce myself and then I will introduce our speaker, Dominique McDonald. So make sure that you can see the show notes are pinned in the chat box. Alyssa is Grand Cayman, the Camana Bay Sports Complex. Welcome, awesome. I'm seeing Alabama, Nikki's here from Olds, Charles from Connecticut, Anita from Saskatoon, Samantha from Colorado, Samantha from New Jersey. Lots of names, Farmers Branch, Texas, Dieppe, New Brunswick, North Vancouver. Welcome, everyone. Let me go ahead and post the call-in numbers. I always forget until the last minute, so let me post those now. A reminder that Google Chrome, hopefully you're in Google Chrome, is always the best option. But if you'd like to call in, you get busy, and you want to hear the call, you can certainly call in from one of these phone numbers, and the participant PIN I'm going to put in the chat box next. I am also making a recording of this session, so keep in mind that all of the recordings are available on the YouTube channel once I get them edited for any sort of glitches. I get so many direct messages and comments from people who do not realize that these are on YouTube. So please, please, please spread the word with your colleagues. It breaks my heart when people think that they have to attend these live. Certainly, I love that you guys come in live, but you don't need to be live, okay? So the recordings as well are in the chat box. Noreen's here from Ottawa, John from New York. I'm just looking to see a couple other links. So a quick roundup of other things I want to restate before I introduce myself. So I mentioned the Saskatchewan and Manitoba Aquatic Conference is happening next week. It is all virtual. Angela was the winner on Friday of the giveaway to that free registration. So congrats, Angela from Maryland. If you're interested in attending that conference, it is 2 days for $70 Canadian. Webinars, both live and recorded. The link is in the chat box. You can scroll up and see. The show notes for today are pinned in the chat box. Please open that up. It is very meaty with lots of links for today, lots of resources, lots of videos, lots of great things to get you started. Dominique will run us through that shortly. The other thing I wanted to mention for my Alberta people, also in the chat box, next week the Alberta Association of Aquatic Professionals, the meeting that typically happens in May, we're hosting it on Click Meeting, this platform. So Albertans, if you would like to attend that session, the link is in the chat box. We will also share it on our Facebook page tomorrow, or you can find the link in the Alberta Association of Aquatic Professionals group. Anybody else who's listening to this announcement, we won't prevent you from attending if you're interested in attending, but prizes and chat topics and questions will only be taken from Albertans. So just be aware of that. So thank you so much, everybody who's here. My name is Katie Crysdale. I am from Lakeview Aquatic Consultants near Calgary, Alberta, Canada. I started these webinars because I really wanted to provide community to everybody during this COVID crisis. We are nearing the end of the webinars, so I'm starting to make the final few session announcements on our Facebook page. So just keep in mind that we know that you're busy, we're busy, everybody has a finite amount of time. So the last couple webinars will be in May. We will not be continuing into June. So if you're looking for any new session announcements, please follow our Facebook page. That's where we make them first. And then all of the registration links, as most of you know, are on the main landing page on our website. So everything can be, you can register for everything on our website, okay? So thanks for being here today. I'm really excited that we're going to have a presenter here to talk about mermaiding and the lifeguard games. So I'd like to introduce first Dominique McDonald. I'm gonna actually authorize your camera before I introduce you, because I always forget that. 1 second, and then I'm gonna introduce Dominique. So Dominique McDonald cultivates teams and committees that develop and carry out innovative and sought-after programs, staff training, and special events. As the manager of corporate brand and services with Your Better Life Coaching, she hopes to share her passion and innovation with you. So we're going to welcome Dominique in just a second. We'll let her get her camera up. All right, make sure, do you want to test it out, Dominique? Make sure that everybody can hear you, and then I'll go off. Oh, I did.
Here we go. How's that?
There.
Yay! Welcome, everyone. Thanks, Katie. This is pretty exciting, and I'm so nervous. I can't figure out why, but it's so formal, the webinar process, and it seems so permanent. It's going to go on YouTube, and I'll probably say something I shouldn't, or be unprofessional in some way. But anyhow, we're going to give it a shot. This is my first go. So Katie had invited me to talk on these two subjects. And so I guess it was on the request that you guys had made. So I just want to thank you for that. Today, we're going to talk about a couple topics, the Mermaid programs and then lifeguard games. So we'll start with the lifeguard first. How do I switch to the next slide? Just need to move this little thing over. There we go. All right, so today's presentation, the main topics will be mermaid tail safety. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about programming options. We're going to talk about lifeguard games, so purpose, the objectives, and some game ideas. So let's get right into mermaids. So first, want to talk about aquatic training equipment. And I wanted to kind of put this picture up because aquatic training equipment is inherently dangerous, basically. if we take a look at this picture of this preschooler holding a flutterboard, does that spark some emotion or maybe some anxiety with some of us? A flutterboard is a tool that is used for training, was designed for training, for swim training, but it does require some physical skills to be able to use that piece of equipment. They have to have some gross motor skills, physical awareness. So basically, us just looking at this picture without a parent next to it would basically cause some anxiety, and your lifeguards would walk over and question why there's a young child holding on to this piece of equipment. So that being said, when we move to other pieces of equipment like flutterboards, or sorry, pull buoys or water floaties, noodles, or even dual flippers, again, each of these pieces of equipment has some inherent risks if the person doesn't have a basic set of swimming skills before they can use it. So the picture shows a young child wearing adult flippers and maybe a teenage, those look like teenager legs. So you wouldn't want the young child in those flippers, the dual flippers, let alone a monofin. So the idea here is just to really take a step back. There is a lot of knee-jerk reaction when the monofins came out, and Katie mentioned earlier in the show notes the idea that the monofins are super dangerous, and they do come with inherent dangers associated to it, just like a pull buoy would, or flippers would, or a noodle would, if it's in the hands of someone who doesn't have the required skills to be able to use those tools. Other things to think about would be like a snorkel, okay, or even a PFD. So a PFD in an infant, they still need to be able to roll themselves over or navigate. If you've ever seen a non-swimming adult who's totally terrified, when they get a PFD on, it's, you know, it still can be dangerous. So there needs to be some sort of physical awareness associated to it. Now, when we're talking about mermaid tails, where do they come from? Well, really, it's an aquatic training piece of equipment that has the same premise of the other training tools. So on the left, the picture you see is of a swim athlete, competitive athlete using a monofin for training. And then on the right, you see a girl using the similar piece of equipment for recreational use. And so one is permitted and one is banned. And so if we take a step back, and sometimes banned. And so if we take a step back and look at why, okay, is one banned and one not, and it has to do with the level of skills required to be able to use the piece of equipment if they're unattended. So basically, the way I look at it is a mermaid tail is basically a piece of training equipment with a fancy cover on it. It's pretty, and so it has that cover that makes you feel, but it's still restricted, just like the monofin. I'm going to show you the mermaid tail. So there's lots of different brands, and what we've found was that I wanted to pick a piece of equipment that addressed some of the safety concerns. And so the one that we're going to talk about today is the Fin Fun. So this guy has its own little backpack, so the participants can come to and from the pool with their own little backpack. This one's my daughter's. She let me use it for today. This tail is, I would say, 3 years old. So basically, it's got your Lycra, your swimsuit material cover. So swimsuit material cover. And then inside is the monofin, okay? A lot of people, some people have mentioned that the quality of the tails, they, you know, get wrecked quite quickly. And I would agree, we have had some bad batches of tails come in. But what we found was that the company addressed the concern with the seams in the corners by coating the tips here with like a plastic covering. So you can hear it's kind of hard. So the shell is nylon, super stretchy. They come in a variety of sizes, and Katie has put the sizing chart in the show notes so that you can see how that works. And then here's the monofin. So the idea is that it's a hard piece of plastic on the inside in here, okay? And then it has a neoprene neoprene, so like scuba wetsuit material, shell with ankle holes. So very, very simple design. But what this allows you to do is you slip your feet in the hole, okay, in the 2 ankle holes. And then the thing that got me onto this product was the fact that it's easy to take off. And so we'll show you those pieces shortly. We looked at a lot of tails, and for sure, some tails are definitely going to be more dangerous than others. The ones that I think that we want to avoid are the ones with the heel straps. So anything that has a heel strap. So this one particularly, I'm not a fan of. It requires the swimmer to be able to fold themselves over, kneel over in the water. So it requires quite a bit of flexibility, and they have to be able to use their hands to slip the heel strap off of a foot in order to escape the tail. And so this is why one of the ones that it concerns me. The current tail that I showed you, the FinFun one, doesn't require them to bend over and release with their hands. So here we go. Now let's talk safety. We talked a little bit at the beginning about what the safety requirements are in order to, what skills do you need in order to be able to wear a tail? So Erin Wilson was actually out of Saskatchewan, was one of the person that got me onto this particular product when we were looking at it. And a couple of the things that really flagged me and helped me realize why I was a huge supporter of this company, this brand, was because of how they seriously take the safety. They've invested a lot of information and resources in making sure that mermaids are safe. So they've gone through and made a list of recommended basic skills. They have a video that is so when you get your mermaid, there's a little package with a little safety on it, that safety notice that says to watch the videos. So it's directed at the parents and the children who are going to use the tails to watch it together. So the required skills that you want to be able to have your people be able to do before they get into a mermaid tail is front and back floats, holding them for 30 seconds or more. Rollover, so rolling front to back, back to front. Treading water, so with mostly sculling, treading water for 30 seconds to a minute, maybe more, a minute is at least. Front swim, so 25 meters or 25 yards, depending on your pool length. And then dolphin kick. So all of these skills would need to be performed by the swimmer before they can put the tail on. And these need to be independent without parent supervision or assistance. So these are self-directed, basically recovery skills. So these would be your prerequisites. So some facilities will incorporate this as part of their program. So this is like, you go through these steps before you get to get your tail on. Others make it a prerequisite, so they have to be able to do these skills like a swim test before they get to participate in the program, or they'll make it associated with a swim level. So for example, in Canada, it would be maybe equivalent to, Red Cross Swim Kids, 3, 4, 5, if they're gonna go in the deep end, those kind of things. So as your facility, you can link a prerequisite associated with a set of skills. Other people will basically adopt it or make these skills even more challenging based on where the swimmers are going to take place. I would also recommend that you have the candidates do this swim skill check with the tail as well. So they have to do these skills before they get the tail on, and then once they have the tail on, they need to go through these set of series of skills after as well. Also note that your weaker swimmers, if they can't make the 25-meter distance or the dolphin kick is a challenge, parental assistance is still okay. So having a parent in the water or doing one-on-one or doing within arm's reach, that is a method that we use for other swim programs. And so that works just as well. There's a video on these safety links, and I mentioned that it is on the show notes, and so that link will be there for you, so you can watch that. The thing about mermaids is that it's an activity that gets kids active and adults active and in the water. It can generate other registrations. So what can happen is if a candidate swimming skills aren't up to this level, they'll register in your swimming lessons to finish and complete that level. So I've seen it where kids are registered in level 3 and level 4 and level 5, and the goal is that next summer I'm going to be in the Mermaid program or whatnot. So that's keeping our kids in the water. They're excited. They're learning about water safety through these other registered programs. And then once they get into these programs as well, we're teaching water safety. So when we talk to the parents about why these skills are required before they can register, it's that water safety messaging that we're sharing. Let me go to the quick release. Okay, so this is really the big feature of the fin fun tail is the mermaid tail quick release technique. So the idea is I showed you there's 2 foot holds, and they're just held on by that neoprene sleeve. And the technique is to push one foot out, push the other foot out, and then kick your legs, and the tail falls off. So Katie, if you can cue up that video now, it would be great if we could show the video of the quick release. Here we go. So these are in the show notes. There we go. So she kick, 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 and the tail comes out. Kick, 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 the tail comes off. Kick, 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 the tail comes out. So it really is, once you've done it once, it is easy to do. It doesn't require the flexibility like I mentioned with the other ones where you have to lean over and get the heel. They're just showing now how to put it on and then kick it off. Kick it off. It just kicks off. The tail floats so it doesn't create a sinking feeling on your feet when you're swimming with it. She's just learning how to use it now. Okay, great. So I hope that answers your questions about the quick reliefs. One of the things that I liked, once again, with the Fin Fun was that they took the water safety component seriously. And so in this quick release video, the first things they talk about is the fact that you have to have those previous swimming skills before you're at this stage. So that is a great education tool for water safety. Some of the other rules that you can address, or we want to address, is that the tail should always be used under adult supervision. And so it's not something that you just have a tail and you just walk away. Swimming and water safety is essential to have adult supervision. They mentioned that you should only swim where you normally swim. So if you normally swim in a pool with a lifeguard, then you want to swim in a pool with a lifeguard with your mermaid tail. Those kind of pieces. The other thing that I really liked is the way that they framed the no breath holding. So mermaids, the fear is that there's extended breath holding or shallow water blackout risks associated with mermaiding. And so Fin Fun's address that with, they have a whole tagline, which is humans don't have gills, so remember to breathe. And so the idea here is that water safety messages is right on their webpage. It's on their videos. They have promotional equipment, and then it's also in all of their flyers and handouts. And so it makes it easy transition into your facilities. So for example, I've seen facilities where they have you can only swim underwater for 15 meters max. And so that rule would still apply to this mermaid activity. It would be a 15-meter max if that was your facility rule. Proper fit, and then respect water safety. And they also talk about awareness in swimming, in knowing other people around you. So you can swim, you can get pretty quick. The kids can swim pretty fast with these tails on. And so if they're not watching where they're going, the video will mention at one point to put their hand above their head if they're swimming on their back. So those water safety messages are included and easy to adapt to your facilities. There is a video about these rules tagged into the show notes. So just so you know, you can go back and look at it and use these tools for later. All right, so let's move on. So the Fin Fun has the brand, the Fin Fun, has a Mermaid University affiliate program. And so the program is very flexible in that it has different options for your facilities for obtaining the tails, wholesale, retail, and then as well resources for their Mermaid University program with Mermaid, 101, they call it. So the different options for your tails for retail and wholesale would be, one, you can order a series of tails for your instructors and your participants and keep them in your pool. And so basically when your instructors go to teach, they would grab a tail out of the inventory. When your candidates show up, they would grab a tail out of your inventory. In Alberta, we have had a number of facilities adopt this program and how they're running it. And so one of the things that I would recommend when you're first starting is to get all the tails in the same color. So tails will come in different sizes and different colors. And when you have different colors and different sizes, there was sometimes a little bit of issues with the candidates wanting a pink one or the purple one or the blue one. So if they all went with green and all the sizes were green, it would make it easier to distribute the tails and then collect them at the end of the day. Now, storage, can talk about storage. One of the things that we discovered was how do you store your tail? And so when the tail has the cover on it, so let's pretend it's all covered up, you just hang it through a hanger like this. Okay, I don't know if you can see that, just through the center part of the hanger. And then the weight from the fabric holds it, and then you just hang it on your railing. And so they dry real nicely. And we've had ours for a couple years now. So that's one option, is to keep an inventory. Another option is to, with your registration, ask for sizing and colors selection and close registration 2-3 weeks before your program starts. Order your products specific to the users in your group, and then that becomes part of their registration price. On the first day of the program, they receive their tail, and then they take the tail home back and forth from their facilities, but then they keep it. This can work great for families where there's multiple kids. So for older one uses the tail, and the next one, it kind of gets passed down. Some of them will upgrade and get different tail covers. And so it's nice to be able to have that as an option. And then you're not storing it. You're not having to maintain it. The candidates can take the tail to their homes or their communities and use it at their leisure, because now they have the water safety. They also spread that water safety message and awareness around. And then maintenance, it's up to them to deal with the maintenance and storage and all that kind of stuff. So that can be another option. Okay, so let's keep going. So the Mermaid University affiliate program, you contact them directly. This isn't a paid sponsorship kind of deal. I'm just a fan and just want to share what we found and help your next venture. There is a downloadable PDF of that mini university piece, Mermaid University piece. So you can download that flyer. All right, so the Mini University Affiliate Program provides instructor resources. So who teaches Mermaid University? I keep getting my words mixed up. Who can teach Mermaid University? So with this program, they have an online video that teaches the quick release and a few of the basic skills. And the idea is you would take a swim instructor, or I would suggest even a synchro coach, a certified synchronized swimming coach, lifeguard instructor, and then give them the video and then do an in-service with your staff to practice wearing the tails, and they're ready to go. There's lots of resources available to them. Interestingly enough, when we were launching this program, we were concerned about getting instructors and who would teach it and who would be excited and who wouldn't and that kind of stuff. And we were thrilled when our staff, once we launched, telling them that we were launching the program, we ended up having an overwhelming response that we had to make a competition over who was going to be able to teach this program. And the equal energy associated with male and female instructors. So our staff were super excited about it. And we had, in some cases, more male instructors than we did female instructors on some weeks. So everybody got excited about it. Class outlines, Mermaid certificate awards, there's promotional tools, poster and web graphics, lots of different mermaid activities. The Instagram posts that Katie's pinning to the show notes also has loads and loads and loads of mermaid crafts and activities. There's also mermaid swim training and fitness classes. So I did notice that a few people had mentioned that they were doing mermaid fitness classes, and those are a great workout. It's amazing, the core workout that you get when you wear a mermaid tail. Video number 4, we're going to show now. Katie's going to cue that up. Just takes a quick minute. Again, it's going to be linked in the show notes. Here we go. I wonder if we'll have sound on this one. I think this one needs sound. I'm not hearing any sound, but yeah, mermen, merpeople. Yeah, some of the advanced skills. You see that they've got a wave formation there. They're using it in a lane. There's lane ropes there. The kids put their tails on and off poolside. Some obstacle courses, some races. There's a little merman in there. Interestingly enough, some of the tails have different colors. So there's a kind of a Finding Nemo fish. So Nemo was a boy. And there's orca, clownfish, I guess, and orca. So, and then there's black ones and blue ones. So, and then there's shark fins as well that you can get. It'd be really cool to do Shark Week camp on Shark Week, and they could, I don't know, make a shark fin, or shark tooth necklace, not a shark fin, a shark tooth necklace, or learn about the anatomy of a shark, things like that. So those, lots of creative ideas. Okay, I'm just trying to find our place. Here we are. Okay, so different options for mermaid programming. So parented mermaid classes. So I am a huge advocate for programming, especially because parented programming, because it gives us an opportunity to get that water safety message to the parents. So this would be for children who don't meet the age or the skill requirements, but still want to be a mermaid. And so you'll notice the picture here, she's got her little mermaid tail on, but there's no fin. So this one wouldn't have a fin, but she still would get to be a mermaid or a merman. And it's parented. So similar to your preschool program where it's parented, the parents are not in mermaid tails, just the kids. But the parents would be standing and all the activities would be assisted, and then the water safety message would be delivered to both the parents and the children. So I'm a huge fan of this one. Mermaid parties. So Katie mentioned the driveway parties or backyard parties where you've got a backdrop, mermaid shells and balloons, and there's some crafts. So they get basically a short mermaid experience, introduction to a tail. You could do an in water or no water session associated with this. Mermaid meet and greet or story time where the mermaid reads the kids a story, or this could be good for if you've got trade shows or things like that. Parades, 4th of July, having a float with a bunch of mermaids on it is a great promotional tool for your community and awareness for your facility. Mermaid lessons. So this, you could have a series, Mermaid level 1, level 2, level 3. So the skills gradually, progressively get more difficult. Mermaid camp. So it would be a day, like a PD day or Pro D day, or a week-long program where there's a combination of land and water activities. So land stuff, you could do crowns, crafts, photo shoots, mermaid makeup like you see here, crowns, scepters, shell decorations. There's loads and loads and loads of crafty mermaid sea themed stuff on Pinterest, on Instagram. So the instructors go crazy with loads of ideas. And it's really fun week to week to see the differences. Mermaid club. So the idea of a club is that it lasts for, you know, a season or two. There's exclusive mermaid swim times maybe where they can come and use the tail and not worry about swimming around your family lane swimming and things like that. They have a community associated to the mermaids. Maybe they do a routine, like a little mermaid routine at the end of the year, or a mermaid show. Facility that we were at did a mermaid show at the end of a mermaid camp. And I mean, I think there were 16 participants registered in that week, maybe 20. We had the mermaid show at the end of the week. It would have been like a Friday at 2:30, 3 o'clock. And I thought, well, you know, maybe we get a few parents show up. Sure, great. Well, let me tell you, we had almost 100 people show up. Parents and grandparents and siblings and aunts and uncles. Huge. And I mean, it was like a 30-second water show, but they were so excited. The stories that we heard from parents' testimonials, that it was the thing that their child was looking forward to the entire year. Registration would start 5 months in advance, so maybe 5 or 6. So it would be in February for July summer camps. And they would sell out in 6 minutes. I'm not kidding, 6 minutes. We sold all the spots. So then we'd have to go and find extra instructors, and then we doubled registration, and those also sold out. The wait lists were double and triple the number of participants we had. And so parents, you know, use it as a bargaining tool. They're like, my kid has been the best kid for the past 3 months because I keep holding the mermaid camp over their head. They were excited to finish their Red Cross Swim Kids program and get that badge and their certificate in order to qualify for the program. So we did have a lot of other benefits to these candidates and to our program facility-wide because of the mermaid tails. So Mermaid Club, and be inclusive, mer people, mermen, merfolk, whatever you want to call it. Like I said, the shark fin is a great option. Shark Week. Other activities that I've seen done would be like mer nutrition. So where the candidates learned about, you know, aquatic life and sea life. They learned about the ocean. We did some environmental learnings about the ocean and the environment that mermaids live in and how we got to keep the oceans clean. So a lot of other messaging was associated with the mermaid theme. Okay, so that's pretty much my mermaid spiel. There's lots of resources out there for you. And then hopefully we can do some Q&As afterwards. So awkward transition, I guess. We're going to transition to the lifeguard games now. And so there's a video that we're going to show, and I'm really hoping the sound works for this because the music is part of it. So Katie's going to pull that up. So I guess I'll talk about lifeguard games. So lifeguarding requires a broad variety of skill set. Now, I don't want this to be confused with life-saving. So life-saving competitions and life-saving sport is a completely different thing in my brain as far as lifeguard games goes. So games is really about in-service, professional development for lifeguards. And we've added games to it, so there's a level of competition, and you'll see later how we've gamified it. As compared to life-saving sport. That's a totally different activity, set of framework, set of guidelines, and process where you would ramp up to qualify for different levels of competition. So that is an amazing sport. I encourage anyone and everyone who wants to give that a try, do it. But what we're talking about today is about really that in-service specific lifeguarding training, that we can take it to gamify or make our own in-services fun, or we can include neighboring facilities and lifeguards in our community come and join. So this is the lifeguard games from the University of Calgary. Oh, it's lagging. So it's Victoria Logan, the aquatic supervisor, being interviewed. I'll talk a little bit about each of these pieces later on, but this is a good little clip. So yeah, so that was the one from the CBC. And there's another one that, if you can show the other one, that would be great. The other video clip. It would have been the one right before the CBC one. Okay, well, I'll just keep going, and then if you can manage it, Katie, just click it on at any time, and then we'll watch it. It fits anywhere, really. It's not that big of a concern. So yeah, so lifeguard games are about taking what we do for our regular facility in services, our lifeguard training, scenarios, all that kind of jazz, and wraps it up into one. One of the things that we wanted to really focus on when we were looking at this activity was we found that a lot of the lifeguards would basically not get in the water unless they had to, until the training day. So we would get to in-service training and some of their skills would be weak, or they wouldn't have confidence in their own skills because they hadn't been practicing throughout the time in between the in-services. Oh, I think we might have the show. So these are all on the show notes. So because we're not getting volume, I would really encourage you to go back afterwards and click the links. And so we can get a go here. Oh, she's trying with the volume. Oh, there's our sparkly fanny packs. It's not as great when you don't have the sound. You don't hear them cheering and laughing, but yeah, so click over to the show notes afterwards and click the link so that you can see them, or you can go right onto Google and just YouTube or Google Calgary Lifeguard Games. They have lots of videos, lots of resources. Their Instagram is quite robust. Lots of contributions from the different competitors over the years, you can see, and lots of good ideas there. And there's the hashtag lifeguard games is a really good one to follow because there's lifeguard games all over North America and they look amazing. So it's great to see some of the legacies that have been created by these events. Oh, this was funny. This was the comically large check. And then they're going to announce the winners. And then the trophy, because everybody needs a trophy. There you go. So yeah, some of the competitions for the lifeguard games are open to any lifeguard from anywhere. So you can have teams traveling as professional development as your Pro D. So your supervisors and programmers and managers go to conferences, and your lifeguards can go to these different lifeguard competitions, lifeguard games, as professional development, just like you might send a water safety instructor or swim instructor to a session or a workshop. This is kind of how you can frame that, because they will practice. And that's one of the features here of these events, is that having them registered for these activities or these games, get them in the water. So we've seen staff hop in the water and start training 3 months out, 6 months out. For these specific events. So they get in the water and practice their fitness. They'll get in the water and practice their rescue skills, their scenarios, the whole 9 yards. So it's great to see them in the water practicing and honing their skills on their own time in order to prepare for what is in essence a training. The competition piece encourages them to get practicing. So when you're designing your lifeguard games, it's really important that you don't just pick out things randomly. It has to have a purpose. So you really want to look at what objectives, what skills, what techniques, and what knowledge components you want to highlight or feature during your competition. So it doesn't have to be anything, or sorry, everything. It just needs to be something. So if you have a framework of some objectives that you want to outline before your competition, that's going to help direct you in making sure that you know what skills or how you're going to change the different activities or modify them. So the different things you can incorporate: fitness skills, swimming skills, rescues, scanning. So you can take rescues, a big chunk like rescues, and break it down into smaller chunks and just do a skill or an activity that evaluates their scanning ability, their entries, their tube skills, tows and carries, whether they're effective or speed, removals, first aid components, CPR, the use of an AED, the first aid assessments, first aid treatments, reporting or document, or just specifically using the radio. You can also evaluate things like teamwork, communication, problem solving, water safety education, kindness, work safe procedures, the use of personal protective equipment, chemical safety, pool operations if that's part of your framework, cleaning duties, or squeegee skills. I mean, those rookies come in and they don't necessarily know how to use a squeegee, but if you get someone who's experienced with a squeegee, they can get pretty competitive on how to use a squeegee. Lane rope skills, so tightening the lane rope using the wrench or using the super tensioner, or how quick they can get the rope in or how quick they can get the rope out. There's no limit to the things that you can basically incorporate in your lifeguard games when you're setting them up. There's so many things to choose from, so it's really important that you pick a few features, things that you want your staff to know or you think is important or must be highlighted with your event, and then pick those and design your activities or your challenges or your stations around those objectives. Okay, so now we're talking about scenarios. Scenarios are by far the most time-consuming piece of a lifeguard game, but they are the most essential. So successful scenarios require preparation, equipment, and a really good evaluation tool. So you need to make sure you have defined guarding areas for that when you're setting up the scenarios. So for this particular scenario, the team of this many lifeguards is evaluating this particular area. Especially if you have a large facility, this particular skill might not work if they're way at the other end of the facility. So you want a framework where exactly they're going to be evaluated on. The use of mannequins is really important. So you could use the orange life-saving mannequins for scenarios or for your skill stations. But the one that we like to use is the Ruth Lee mannequin. Katie will add a link to the Ruth Lee. Katie, can you do that for me, please? We'll add a link to the Ruth Lee mannequin. I think they're around $1,500 Canadian. Again, not sponsored, just a huge fan. It's a weighted mannequin that it has the silhouette of a body, and it actually functions really well like a body. The head flops, the arms flop, and so it works really well for submerged rescues, works great for removals, it works great for tube skills, spinals, on land carries. This thing is heavy. And it does act really very similar to that of a body. So I encourage you to use the mannequins or silhouettes. Barrier devices must always be used when you're doing scenarios. The idea of saying, I'm putting on my gloves, when we're doing scenarios, we should be actually putting on the gloves. You got out of the water, you're wet, you got to actually put the gloves on. We want these scenarios to be as realistic as possible so that they don't get to a real life situation and say, oh, I'm putting on my gloves, because that's what they're trained to do, is just verbalize it instead of actually doing it. Using your CPR dolls, your rescue tubes, practice AEDs, foam kits. Now, if you've not been introduced to the purpose and use of the foam when dealing with CPR or aquatic rescues, please follow up with Kelly Martinez or Katie. We'll put some links here, but the foam is really important. It's a huge learning opportunity for scenarios, and I really, really feel passionately about using foam for pool scenarios, for aquatic rescues. So there, Katie's posting it for us. That's great, thanks. You're so quick. So foam kits. Accurate victim simulations. So you need to make sure that your victims, that if you're using real life people, are trained. So that's that preparation piece. Time limits. These scenarios, if they're maybe a weaker team, these scenarios can take up your entire day. So really look at what skills you want to focus on, and set up time limits so they can get the maximum number of points or credits in, say, 5 minutes or a 10-minute window. But then that helps you when you're planning to basically do a 2-minute intro, a 10-minute scenario, a 2-minute close, and a 1-minute buffer. So every scenario is going to take 15 minutes, and that's how you can plan out how you have your teams. Now, other pieces, you can have multiple scenarios running at the same time, or you can do head-to-head scenarios, which is one of the things that we really like. Is I've seen where we have 2 teams with different colored jerseys on, or singlets, and basically there's someone that is in distress. One of the teams identifies, recognizes, and signals. The first team to do that wins the scenario, and they proceed with the rescue. And then another team pops in, so that winning team basically continue on with the scenario, and they're being evaluated. And now you've got another team on deck. So you've got 2 more teams, the team that missed out and the new team. And then again, you have a new victim simulation, and boom, here we go. So that's a way that you can get some, emphasis on speed for recognition and signaling, as well as getting your scenarios going quickly. So 15 minutes, you can get them going quite quickly and get through quite a few. Easy to use evaluation tools. So your judges may be staff or volunteers, but you really want consistency in your marking. So your rubrics and your evaluation tools need to be easy to use and consistent between all the different judges. Other tools and equipment that you want to make sure that you're using would be things like your surfboards if you're using a beach entry, or EpiPen trainers, or asthma spacer trainers. Working walkie-talkies, so you actually want them to use the walkie-talkies, or you can invite your EMS department to come in and do a volunteer EMS dispatchers so that they actually get the experience of going through the dispatch call with your EMS, or your local EMS can come and do an actual transition. If you have them sometimes volunteer, they can come in and practice that transition from your pool to the pre-hospital care. Those are all really great techniques and experiences that can enhance just normal training. Fitness activities. So there's loads and loads of different ways that we can do the fitness activities. So relays work really well. You can do head-to-head races. So head-to-head meaning team versus team, or you can do person versus person. Best time rate. So you basically have the same race run over and over and over again, and the best time wins. Or you can do heats. So there's a series of them. They do their heat, they do their heat, they do their heat, and then the top 3 move on to the next round. Tournament brackets, you can do round robin formation where they each have to go head to head against all the teams to then earn points to move to the final. Or you can do fitness stations. So fitness stations are another technique where they basically have like a passport or a checklist and they have to go around to all the different fitness activity stations. Or you could do progressive challenges where they have a base level, fitness level. If they achieve a successful performance or marker at some point, then they can move to the next one. Then they can move to the next one. Then they can move to the next one. And then he who gets to the top wins, or there's some sort of determining factor there. So that can really help encourage fitness training before your events. Okay, so we've talked about scenarios, we've talked about fitness. So let's talk about games. So this is kind of where you can take your lifeguard competition and your skills and we gamify it. So here's some of the ideas, and some of them we've used and some of them we haven't used, but we've had the idea. So I'll start in the top left, the hearing things. These are all from Amazon, or you can get them at Chapters, or we can pick them from different vendors. And then you can also buy pieces of them. So for example, the Handemonium, if you've never seen Saturday Night Live Tiny Hands sketch, you need to watch it. It is my favorite. It is so funny. So Handemonium basically is 2 little plastic mini hands. They're about this big, and you slide them in your sleeve, and then you've got these little baby tiny hands, and it's hilarious. Handemonium is a game that you can get. It comes with 4 hands, and it also comes with cards. It comes with charade kind of cards and physical challenge kind of cards. So the idea here is you can take this game and tweak it for lifeguardings with hand signals. So hand signals, how do you do hand signals with tiny hands? So they have to do their tiny hand signals. Or we've done it where they have to do a first aid with tiny hands. So what we're looking for is, let's say it was splinting. We're looking for them to do a proper assessment. We're looking at them hold the injury above and below the injured site, and then mobilize in the position found. So those would be the basic first aid skills that we're looking for. Now, can they do those skills with tiny hands as a team? So, there's 4 of them or 2 of them, and they use their little tiny hands to do this mobilize and position found and assessment. It's hilarious. And still, we're meeting the needs and the objectives because they're actually doing the immobilize up and down, they're doing the assessment, and they're doing the immobilize and position found. So funny, right? Okay, hearing things. This one's great. What it is, it's a headset that you buy. It comes in the box, and it has batteries in it. You press the button, and it creates a lot of noise in the headset, so you can't hear really well. So this is really great for communication. So a lot of times at pools or facilities, it's really loud. And so when someone's talking to us or we're trying to communicate with other lifeguards, it can be very difficult to understand. So this one, you could take specific typical words or phrases that lifeguards hear around the pool, and then they have to communicate those to the person with the hearing things. So the phrase might be don't walk, or run, or did you pass your swim test, or no peeing in the pool, or, you know, whatever your common phrases are. Where's your wristband? Things like that. So then they have to communicate those with the person wearing the hearing things headset. So that's really fun. Guess who? You saw this one in one of the videos we just watched. So the idea was we took the pictures from the Guess Who game and had them laminated and stuck into floating islands that were in the pool, and they were all random. And then they had to pick the card and find the person, swim over to them and grab the card. So it was a really good scanning activity. They scanned like you've never seen before. It was so great. And this game is really popular. We've tweaked it every year. It got tweaked a little bit, changed a little bit, but they sure loved it. We've also included some the vendor sponsored logos in the game. So some of the images weren't just from the Guess Who game. They would be from sponsored logos or things like that. Headbands, again, another communication one. So it's a headband with a card that has words on it, and then they have to get the person to guess it without saying the words. So again, you could use first aid or anatomy, or first, like I said, knowledge from the lifeguard manual, things like that. Policy and procedure pieces of equipment that you use could all be customized in the different cards based on what you were looking for. Speech breaker is another along the line of the hearing things, except this one's like with a microphone that it distorts the voice, so it makes it difficult to understand. So this could be good for noisy facilities, or if you've got language barrier, things like that. Good practice for communication. And then the things with the blue X's and the red dots, those are buzzers. So those would be great to purchase if you were having like a family feud, or something sort of like an answer Q&A, true or false, where they had to hit the buzzer to be able to answer first, to be able to get their points. Pandemonium, the other thing I was going to say you can do with the first aid, but you can also do charades with the tiny hand. So that one's really fun. Okay, our next series of games could be Kahoot. So you can do a Kahoot session. That's a really fun application. And Kahoot is really great for, you can do specific knowledge or procedure, processes, safety components to the Kahoot. And so you're actually getting quite competitive with technical knowledge. So that really works well. Pick your poison. That one you could do pick your PPE. So it's kind of a this or that kind of game. So you could change it up to pick your PPE. The Flush and Frenzy, oh my God. I haven't used this before, but everyone keeps sending it to me for be a great lifeguard game. I mean, it's the poop that comes out of the toilet. I don't know. It's hilarious. I don't know how you would incorporate it. So if anyone has an idea, you let me know. But that's the last thing that I would want in my pool. Oh, Speak Out. Oh my God, this one is hilarious. So Speak Out is the game where it has a mouthpiece, so similar to the one that you wear at the dentist, where it stretches and holds your mouth out. And then you have to communicate, try and say words. So again, we would take this game and make cards that would be specific to aquatics or first aid or lifeguarding, equipment, common phrases, and they would have to basically guess those words. So there's lots of different ways you can use it. One of the things that I learned was that you can buy the Speak Out game, or you can actually buy the mouthpieces in bulk. So how you would do that is you would buy, say, 50 to 100 smalls or mediums or larges. They come in different sizes. And then you would treat them like you would your pocket mask, your berry device. You would have a clean bin. They would get used by the one person, and then it would go in the dirty bin, and it would be sanitized like you would your pocket masks for disinfection. So that's something to consider looking at. Box of Lies. This one's hilarious. If you haven't seen it on Jimmy Fallon, I've gotten lots of our game ideas from Jimmy Fallon or from love these because they've seen them on TV. So Box of Lies is there's a box with an item in it. They open the box.
Can you guys hear me? 1 second. I think we lost Dom. Hold on. Let me. Okay. Try talking, Dom.
I'm good now?
Yeah.
Oh, geez, sorry.
That's on our toes.
Oh, okay. Did y'all hear the Box of Lies piece? So I can move on to the foam magnetic piece? Yes? Okay. So the foam magnets, thank you everyone for your feedback, by the way. Wasn't sure. I just disappeared. So the foam pieces are Amazon. I think you get a box of like 500 for like $3 or something, but they're foam magnetic pieces. And so as how you design your lifeguard games, this one is, we kind of had a survival piece to it, kind of a survivor game where they have to accomplish different skills, and each time they accomplish a different skill or station, they get a puzzle piece, and then at the end they have to put the puzzle together to win. So if you did an obstacle course where they went back and forth in your pool and it had fitness and safety and lifeguarding skills, kind of a gauntlet of sort, or like I said, obstacle course, and every station they picked a puzzle piece, then at the end they would have to put a puzzle together. Those are really fun. So those are different ways that you can build teamwork, collaboration, and problem solving into your event. Okay, other games. Lego is great and everybody loves building Lego, but there's different ways that you can do it. So there's different games where you have to communicate. So they might have some Lego structure built in one room, and then they have to communicate through walkie-talkie to get the person in the other room to build the exact same Lego pieces. So your communication has to be specific, slow, clear, it has to be two-way, and then you've incorporated the difficulty of a walkie-talkie and how sometimes that doesn't go very well. So that's a really good one. That was a real nice challenge. The lane rope one, I mentioned a few different options before about pulling up lane ropes as a lane rope race, or how to use super tensioners or ratchets, things like that. But one of the things that I got from Yale or Harvard, can't remember, as an idea, their swim team, part of their ritual, they did an annual swim across the campus, or sorry, run across the campus carrying a lane rope. So we did that once. It was hilarious. So they basically have to pick up the lane rope, throw it over their shoulder, and then they run, outside or along the pathway or around the facility, not on the pool deck, but they're running as a race basically to see how far they can go or how quick they can go with carrying a 25 or 50-meter lane rope. It was pretty funny. Somehow I have Guess Who twice on my graphic. I Spy is a memory visual scanning kind of game. So it's kind of like a Where's Waldo idea, which Where's Waldo would work really well too. Good for practicing the scanning and the eye. And this game comes with a bell that works really well. It goes ding. So I really like that. The original memory, always a fan. That's a great game. You could tweak it by adding sponsor logos for your event, or pieces of safety equipment, or hand signals. As long as they're two of the same image, you flip the cards down, and then the teams have each take a turn trying to make the matches. Bingo is always a good one. You could give them each a different bingo number for each of their stations or their skills until they complete their bingo card. So lots of different options here. I think we're good. So lots of different options with different games. Watch the different, Jimmy Fallon's or Ellen's, Pinterest, YouTube. There's loads of different resources of different, even tic-tac-toe with a relay, or giant Jenga, or giant Connect 4. If you add a physical component to it, then you've basically made it a game with purpose, or a game with aim, however you want to call it. So if they had to, say, do 10 burpees and run across the field and then get their piece to put the piece in the Connect 4, that has some fitness associated with it. Or you could assign knowledge to it. So they would have to answer a true or false question. If they get the question correct, they get their piece, and then they can run across the field or wherever and put their piece in the game board. So there's lots of different ways that you can incorporate multifaceted to make sure that it's a game with an aim. If it doesn't have a purpose or meet an objective that you outlined at the beginning, then it's just a game. And when you're talking about staff training, it has to have a purpose. There needs to be a message behind each of the activities. It needs to be measurable. There needs to be those objectives with purpose in order for it to be effective, and in order for you to have the prestige associated with this event. If it's just silly and fun and games and basic, then, sure, it's fun. But remember what our purpose is to actually have better lifeguards at the end of it. The end of our event, we want to have a really good lifeguard. And so I believe that this kind of event does make a better lifeguard. Some of the interesting things that we've learned along the way is when we first, our in-service training, over the years, we've done loads of different kinds. People don't want to get in. They're having anxiety about the swim test. They're crying, or sick, or they scheduled other activities, or somebody's this or somebody's that. They can't make it. So we found that we were having a real hard time getting buy-in to the training and making and having 100% attendance. Since we started implementing these kind of activities in our training and the competition piece, we promise you, we had people who were training before the in-service, hands down, in the water, legit fitness. We had lifeguards writing workouts for other lifeguards, for their teammates, or for the group as a whole. So there was lots of camaraderie. They were practicing their skills. Some of them actually took extra first aid and CPR recertifications or courses before the competition so that they would be fresh. Great, fine by me. If you're going to take another course to boost your skills before our training, that is phenomenal. I am thrilled. So those are some of the things that we saw happening. Some of the things that we also saw, and this is an interesting one, is that attendance was 100%. We didn't have people coming up with excuses anymore for why they couldn't come. They were excited to come. This is the event of the year. We also had staff, so it was a post-secondary institution, and so we would have staff that would be basically moving away because the school was finished, or they had graduated and were moving on. They would resign so that their resignation day was the day after the training. So here's what's funny, is that people wanted to stay that extra day because they were having so much fun, and it was really valuable piece of training for them, and a really great experience for them, that they actually would resign the day after so that they would come to the training and that would be their last day of work. That had never happened before. We also have staff that are coming back that haven't worked at the facility for 1 or 2 years, and they're coming back to either compete with another team, or they're coming back to volunteer. So we're seeing amazing legacy culture kind of pieces happening with this event. And I see it when I look at the different community Facebook pages or Instagrams and the lifeguard games down in the States, I see there's loads and loads of loads. You can see the pictures of the same teams repeating year after year. So yeah, it's the staff do come. And I can tell you that our staff, when we're running these events, it's their in-service training, so they were paid to be there. It was required, so they didn't have an option. But we allowed other people, other teams to register. And so those people had to actually pay. So the lifeguards would pay a registration fee to be there. You know, they got a free t-shirt and free pizza, and we had a swag bag that they got with a, you know, event object or keepsake. So but they had to pay to be there. So they had to register, they had to pay to be there, and they were there on their own time. And we had half and half, so half registered and half staff. So people did come because it was great. Volunteers, how do we get volunteers? So volunteers were, you know, friends and family. First and foremost, we were going through our Rolodex, and, you know, that I'm old if I say Rolodex. We're going through our contact list and sending out mass communications to get people in the industry that we know to get on board to help us with volunteering, with judging, logistics, event creation, marking, all those kinds of things. And we also asked sponsors to help us. So the community rallied around these events to help them be successful. And so, yeah, it definitely was a successful event because of all those people. The volunteers, they were able to walk away with exposure to a bunch of different ideas. So what would happen was competitors coming from other facilities, maybe it was upper management or leadership, so your head guards, those kind of things, they would leave our competition with ideas of what games to play at their staff training. And so they would implement them at their staff training, which was a huge compliment. Volunteer judges would take those skills that they learned and the different observation from the games and the resources, and they would apply those skills at their staff facilities. So using those skills for their staff training. So those are some great ideas. So inspiration, pull it from all around you. Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, all great resources. Consider volunteering for another event, one in your neighborhood or your community, or one that's far away. Use it to gain experience, observe how the other event is run, and then use those skills for your event. And then maybe you guys can share resources. They can come to your facility and help you run yours with some volunteering. Or compete. So experience an event for yourself as a competitor to gain valuable insights of what your competition would be like for your competitors. What things do you like that they do? What things do you not like? And then how can you change it up? All right, so here's the thing. Lifeguard games can make better lifeguards, but can also increase your community engagement with your volunteers who are going to be swimmers or victims. We've got lots of them who basically started off as volunteer swimmers or victims, victim simulators, who now want to be lifeguards, who have then gone on to take the lifeguard training, who are now hoping to come back and compete as a lifeguard at the event. Volunteer judges and evaluators, corporate sponsorship. This has such a good feel and visual to it for our industry. So much exposure as you can get in corporate sponsorship. Let's get those things rolling. We want corporate and our media to understand the important role that lifeguards play in keeping our communities safe, not just around the pool, but as a whole in our communities. Social media engagement. This is one of the most visual events that you can run that is great for media, social media opportunities, and exposure. So make sure to take advantage of those pieces when you're running your events. Community service components. So what can your event do to give back to your community, local, whether it be, you know, raising money for the food bank or anything, right? what other components are your lifeguards linked to that you can enhance as part of your event. Local and national media exposure. So I showed you the video of the CBC, and that one is linked. There's also a couple local ones. And there was one that was really funny because at the end of the video, you know, they show the interviewer comes to the facility and they take video hits and sound bites of different people, and then they piece it together. And so they show that on the air on TV, and then they throw it back to the news anchors in studio. And the one year the news anchor goes, "Who knew lifeguards were so fun?" And we laughed and laughed and laughed. We all know lifeguards are fun. Lifeguards are fun. Fun. F-U-N. So anyhow, there's some really good sound bites. So for sure, the last year, the year before, I think, was a national exposure. So those news programs really like the competitions like Lifeguard Games because they have a really good community feel. Your airplay and how much airplay you get on TV, local and national, will completely be dependent on what's happening in the industry or in your world at that time. So if there's something that's huge, your piece might get canned. But the one year we were able to get multiple hits on national TV all across Canada, because obviously it must have been a slow news day, or they got lots of discussion or pieces or feedback from that hit. So it actually played over for 2 or 3 days. So that was really fun to see the lifeguards getting the recognition for competing. Those videos are linked through the show notes that Katie's made. Okay, so that's it. I wanted to thank Katie for inviting me to present on these 2 topics, which may be my 2 favorite things. It was a great opportunity to share and hopefully encourage those of you to give it a go and increase our water safety awareness in our communities. This is basically the premise of what these 2 programs are about, is about increasing water safety education in our communities. So I wanted to say, join us. We thank you for. That was a Yoda inspiration closure. And my contact information is there. Hope you follow us on, Instagram, or give me a shout later. Let me know how it went. I love seeing your pictures or your Instagram. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dominique. I think that's a great inspiration, and we all need something uplifting right now when we've had all of these challenges and policies and procedures and safety, and we're forgetting what it's like to actually be in the pool and have fun. So I really appreciate you putting this session together. I pretty much voluntold you, so thank you for
like 3 times.
But you guys know in aquatics we have this problem that when you're good at something, you get voluntold for more things, right? That's the burden that we have. So I want to thank Dominique. I know this is a session that people really, really wanted. So I want to do some Q&A, but I just briefly, for those of you that are still here, we're going to address the Q&A in order. So what I'm going to do is I've taken notes of questions that I've received so far, and then I will turn on the Q&A feature. Some of you were asking where it went, so it's now turned on. You can make your question blue in the chat box. I'm going to push us back over. So thanks, Dominique. I think we'll start first with the Lifeguard Games, and then we'll circle back to mermaiding if we have questions. But number 1 question in the chat box, can you give us an idea of just a quick verbal layout of the day, like 9 to 5, what that looks like?
Mm-hmm. So I think it's going to depend on what your objectives are and what your timelines are. So when we were starting with a seasonal staff training of a full day. So it was an 8-hour day, was our seasonal staff training. The whole facility shut down. The aquatic center was shut down for that day so that we could get 100% of our staff in. There was no work before, there was no work after. It was just that one day. So that was our framework. But I think you could incorporate it in however you wanted to. So for the format that we used was we did opening ceremonies, which was really fun. So all the teams came dressed in costume or themed, and so they got to walk across the pool with the opening ceremonies and announcements. Then we did fitness components. So it was an hour of fitness relays, sprints, swims, toes, that kind of thing. Then it was, so from like 10 till noon, you'd be looking at a skill station. So there'd be a set of skill stations in the pool, and there'd be a set of skill stations in the classrooms next to, like, associated to the building. So half of the group would go to the pool and half of the group would go to the dry land. So they would do that for a couple hours. Then we'd break for lunch. And during the break for lunch, we would provide pizza and have, you know, fun social gathering kind of stuff. So everyone would be together. Obviously, we'd have dietary requirements covered. Then the teams would switch. So the teams who were in the pool before would now be on the classroom, and the classroom. So they would do another 2 hours of the stations. That's where we'd have all the different games and fitness and skill stations. Then we would do the gauntlet. So the gauntlet is basically like an obstacle course where they would basically do a relay format with 20 or 30 different activity stations that they would have to do in sequence. We had set it up so that there were some random pieces to it. So they'd have to say swim this way, towing this mannequin, this distance, and then they'd have to pick up a piece on the bottom of the pool. They picked up the random piece and it may say 10 or it may say 30. And then that would reference the number of burpees or sit-ups or push-ups that they'd have to do. And then they'd do an underwater swim. So there was a series. There was balance components, underwater components, fitness components, underwater search components, entry components. So it was a sequence and it changes all the time. We also included like water testing components, or we would do cleaning, you know, components. So you might have to get out and there'd be a bunch of oatmeal mixed with water on the pool deck, and then they have to clean the square. How fast they could clean up, and it looks like barf. Oh my God, that was the funniest thing because they were like dry heaving while they're cleaning.
Scooping.
Yeah, scooping it. But we had full PPE, so the idea was that they had to practice putting on the PPE and using it and sanitizing it. So it's been really loads of creativity over the years with different things that we've tried. Some worked, some did not. Some did not. Some we just kind of made it through. Yeah. But yeah, so, and then the end of the day, we would have closing ceremonies with awards. So they would win, the teams would win for their total accumulated points. They could get bonus points for being nice. So they had, they got bonus points for doing things that were kind and generous. So some of them would make thank you cards for the volunteers, or have stickers that it would distribute to the volunteers, or they have a little thank you cheer that they would do for the different volunteers so that they could get the extra points. We had a Mr. and Mrs. Congeniality that was always fun. Mm-hmm. So that was based on lifeguards nominating other lifeguards to find out what the nicest lifeguard of the day was. So really it was kind of a well-rounded. We did start the day off a little bit early because we would do body marking. So we had them marked up like you would for a triathlon. And so that was really fun too.
Okay, so it's, to recap for those of you, it's basically a one-day challenge, and then there's a full layout to the day as Dominique provided. And I'm guessing, Dominique, you'd said in the past, typically around 20 to 30 teams of 4 people. Either facilities could register as a team, or individuals could register autonomously. Internally, staff, it's an in-service that they're required to attend, and so they get paid. externally you had facilities interested in bringing participants for cross training and team building and some competition between facilities, and then they would pay a fee that went towards their pizza lunch as well as their swag bag, and that the vast majority of prizes and events were sponsor led or sponsor supported, so you weren't using internal resources for this event. You were using, existing, training mannequins and things like that, but that sponsors would provide prizes, t-shirts, vouchers, all of that. And so what kind of a time commitment throughout the year would you say putting something like this together? Obviously the first year is hardest, but what was that like for you or your staff?
The first year was certainly the hardest because we had to really go back to objectives and purpose. And so sometimes we would get off track. And so pulling our team back into objectives and purpose, and trying to get buy-in at the leadership level was certainly a challenge because it was an investment as far as man hours and planning. The premise was that we were already putting a lot of work into our in-service training prior to this event, because we did this kind of model already. Now what we were doing was we were saying we wanted to include outside people. So how did we have to adapt to include outside people? So some of the outside teams would come in individually, like you said. So one person would just register, and when they'd show up, we mix them onto a team. Other facilities would, like Recreation Excellence, they would send their team from, say, Lethbridge, and they would pay the travel and accommodation for the team and the entry fee, and they would pay the team for that day's work for having been at that event. And so, they were really lucky that their manager was able to do that for them. But the manager looked at it as a frame of professional development for their teams. And so they ended up having multiple teams come the following year. Other facilities, other teams were made up of friends from multiple facilities. So they weren't facility specific. So it might be coworkers from 3 or 4 different pools that team up and then road trip down from Edmonton or whatnot, during a blizzard, of course, because we're hardcore. And it snowed big time last year. Yeah. So we had a variety. The piece that was important was that when we were creating our evaluation tools, we had to eliminate the site-specific pieces. So when we're talking about evaluating the skills, we had to go back to, the rubrics and the marking tools used for lifeguard evaluation and certification. So back to basics. So those would be what we marked to. And yet if somebody did something above that, that's great. So our staff would do certain pieces that would be above standard because they were site specific. And those were the skills that we were looking for, but they weren't receiving bonus points versus another outside team. And then the other thing that we did for the outside teams to kind of level the playing field a little bit was we invited them to come the day before so they could practice their skills in the water. They could do tours of the facility and get accustomed. They met me or whoever else the supervisor was that day for an orientation and kind of a awareness about how the day was going to go, where things are, answer any questions. And they could, like I said, get in the water and practice their skills with our equipment, with our edge, with our this, with our that. And so some of the teams took advantage of that and got in, and other teams just were able to come and compete, and it made no difference. Lifeguards are used to doing lots of different scenarios, and most of us work at 2 or 3 or 4 or more other pools. So that site-specific piece, we learn really quick how to function around those different gutters and edges and stuff.
Yeah, I appreciate, Dom, that you talked about get the leadership buy-in, because that was another question in the chat box. How do we get our leadership to buy in? And I think it's a couple things, and then I'll let you add. But in my opinion, for those who are still here, I think that leadership buy-in is really how you frame it managing up. We want to make this investment in our staff. And maybe if you have a very difficult manager, somebody mentioned earlier, my naysaying manager, maybe you don't call it lifeguard games because that sounds too juvenile. Maybe you call it a competition or a mini conference, because I think the ability, once other facilities see, like myself, Katie, as a volunteer at the Lifeguard Games for several years and sponsor, I get so many ideas from being there. Like it's a gift to me of all the ideas and resources that you found that you share. And so whether you call it like a networking opportunity or a competition or community, like aquatics development, that could really spearhead getting that approval, because everybody wants qualified lifeguards. And if you can show that you're putting in the time to do it better or differently, that'll be rewarded, as long as it doesn't sound like a waste of time, because it's, unfortunately, as we know, people, they think the wrong thing from names. And I think really the graphics and the time and the effort is amazing.
Some of the things that we learned, again, the bonuses for your leadership are things like 100% attendance and compliance in your training. We were actually over 100%, because like I said, staff that were resigning the next day weren't going to be our spring summer staff. So did they need to really be there? No. So the way I looked at it, that was more than I needed. And then what happened was, because they had actually done the spring summer training, we ran into a couple days where we were short staffed, and I was able to call so-and-so and say, can you help me out for one day? And because they had done the spring summer training, they were still qualified to conduct work within our facility. They were still compliant. Other pieces of the factor that helped us and helps with senior management is we actually have had lifeguards tell us that competing at this event helped them in a real life situation. So they've come out of a pool where they've rescued someone, they've performed CPR, and they've told their boss, it was because of the training that I had at the Lifeguard Games. It was that experience. That is a huge, huge testimonial for not just one, but multiple staff. And so, and not just my staff, these were from outside competitors that had to perform rescue, and they told their upper management and their cohorts that competing helped them be more prepared, and they were confident. So that's a huge, huge piece. So if we want our staff to be able to perform during an emergency, we need to set them up for success by giving them realistic training exposure. So the competition piece of scenarios, head to head, those kind of things, evoke stress and anxiety and adrenaline in a healthy way. Right? Yeah. This isn't a scary way. It's a healthy, competitive, adrenaline kind of thing. And so what happens is, when we practice with those kind of high intensity emotions, we are, after the pretend event, we're actually practicing coming down from that and learning how to cope with the post emotions of that elevated experience. And so those are also great arguments to present to your upper management, have them prepared.
I couldn't agree anymore. I mean, I think that we talk about adrenaline training right now is very trendy. So people trying to get their staff prepared to do CPR after they've been swimming, after they've done a removal, after they're all wet and confused. But I also love your piece, Dom, with the Lifeguard Games that I thought was unique in my experience, was how often do we do in-service at a facility in the evening or in the morning and there's nobody else around? There's no audience but other pool people, other lifeguards. And we don't want the customers or the clients around because they'd be looking and they're asking questions, and that's distracting. One of the great things with the Lifeguard Games is all of the teams are competing simultaneously in a 50-meter pool. There's lots going on. There's lots of distractions. There's other whistles. There's volunteers walking around. There's people wandering in and out. And it's a realistic situation to a pool, as opposed to, let's do scenarios during in-service with 3 guards up and 20 in the pool, and we're all sitting around waiting for an obvious signal. right? It's a lot more dynamic and it's a lot more realistic. And I've often found guards and even volunteering at the lifeguard games, some people they're very frustrated or confused when they have an audience watching them. Like they haven't been in their lifeguard course in years and they're not accustomed to somebody watching them, and it throws them. And better during practice than in a real life situation to create this sort of scenario.
And the other piece about the environment is that when you tell your facility members that you're closing down for an entire day to do staff training, how do you think that's going to go? Okay. The response, especially, so we had a legacy piece. It's just how our facility operated well before I was there. But let me tell you, we took heat for it all the time. Facilities that are trying something new like this, they have an uphill climb to be able to say, I'm closing down the whole show for a day for staff training. Excuse me. So for sure you have an uphill battle, but where you get the buy-in is when your community can come and watch. They can see what you're doing. If you make it closed doors and behind the scenes, they for sure aren't going to understand. They're just going to be upset. But when they can be involved in getting your clients to be part of the swimmers that are swimming around, because you have your trained victim simulators, and then you have, you know, swimmers who are just swimming just to be distracting. So the staff don't know necessarily who's the victim and who's not. And so they can come and still have a swim per se, or perform or observe or do something or be involved. And your regulars love that. They love to be involved. And so they can still get in the water, they can still do their activity, then they get the shirt that says that they volunteered, so that's a huge piece. And then they're involved and they can see the work that you're putting into it. And so what happens is now is they're like, okay, when's this event? When is it? When is it? I'm marking it in my calendar. When is it? So we'll get emails 9 months out saying, what's the day I need to lock it in? And it's not because they're mad that we're closing the facility, it's because they want to be involved. And they're proud of the work that we're doing. And so when you can in turn show them the effort and the work that you're putting into it, they're very, very happy to embrace your initiative.
Yeah, and I want to highlight Dom has done a great job in terms of getting those volunteers. And so creating a situation where for the community, for kids, for families, for members, it's a free swim. Right. So any parents like, yeah, I'll bring my kids to a free swim with extra lifeguards for 2 hours and they get a t-shirt and they get a granola bar. Heck yeah, I'll be there. Right. So looking for volunteers. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, it wasn't just me. Don't put that one on me. This was a team effort. We had a huge team of people. It still has a team of people. They're busting their hump. So, and what it was one person would say, I'm doing this. Do you want to do it? And then they would then in turn get another 5 or 10 people. So it was a huge community that rallied around this event, from staff members. So the first year, the people in the pool were our staff's parents and siblings and, you know, friends and family, boyfriends and girlfriends. So that's how we managed to get the people in. It's grown. And so now it's a piece where everyone, okay, well, when is it? We're coming to get our t-shirt, which the event was supposed to be yesterday. And so it was sad that, it got shut down, but they postponed it and they did a photo contest this year, which I was really pleased to see. So that's on Instagram, so go check it out.
Yeah, and a couple other things I'll mention for those of you out there thinking, okay, my leadership is not going to buy into this at my facility specifically. Maybe you find a consortium of pools and you work together. Maybe one pool can donate the pool space, and then one person works on the volunteer coordination and one person works on the sponsorship. Like, one person should not do all of this work. What I was trying to highlight with the volunteers is, even, you know, you go through your Rolodex, or so, you know, if Dom's talking to me and saying, Katie, can you come be a judge? Can you find 2 other people? Then it's that networking piece of, we all want to learn, we all want to help each other. And I think we should also highlight, I'll go back and link in the show notes some of the Instagram posts when I've been there over the last couple of years. But the facility did a really great job of shooting video, taking photos that can be used the whole year, that can be used during the whole year to promote the lifeguard games, but then also to promote recruitment. to promote in-service, to promote adult swim lessons, right? If you have 8 hours and 2 people wandering around with a camera or a GoPro, you can get tons of photos for your Facebook page, your Instagram, any social media that is then going to really that buy-in. You said, Dom, from your members. Well, why is the pool closed? Well, because this pool takes staff training seriously, so seriously that look at all these things they do. Look at this, you know, like there's a lot of double wins that come from that. The other thing,
and there were a lot of pieces that came to us too, things that we hadn't really considered, but people said, hey, once they started learning about it, hey, did you know about this? Why don't you talk to this person? Hey, did you know about this? So, you know, we were able to get the firefighters use a weighted mannequin for fitness training. And so we were able to obtain these really heavy, the Ruth Lee is heavy, but this thing is really heavy. And so they did some carries with those mannequins. So different people would step forward with different ideas on equipment or use, or even ideas of games. So I have a whole section of my computer that's just designed with people sending me stuff. Wouldn't this be fun? Wouldn't this be fun? So
yeah, and actually
it's not a one stop. This isn't all my show. This is a team show. This is a team thing.
No, I hear you. And I think it's a great place to test something out too. I saw Ben in the chat box mentioning using this in your lifeguard certification courses. As you guys know, anytime you invest in creating a tool or a skill or an activity can be used by your guards in service, in a competition. You can loan it out to your swim instructors. You can loan it out to another facility. So really, I don't want you to get overwhelmed thinking, oh, geez, I got to come up with 25 things like she's done and put it together in one big extravaganza. Maybe you start small and you do one activity this week that you develop for in-service when your pool reopens, and then you see how it reacts with your staff, if there's more buy-in, if there's more support, and then you see, okay, well, maybe there's an appetite 1 year from now, setting a goal, giving yourself plenty of time. 1 year from now, let's try and do this with another pool, just ourselves internally. Let's test it out. Let's see if it works. And if it doesn't, let's revisit and try something different.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And yeah, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. The competition would go great if you just use your resources that you already have from your lifeguard training. Your lifeguard training toolkit could be your competition right there, or your games. And then you add one game, and then next year you add another game, and then the next 3 months you add another game. And so by the end, so we now have a toolkit of a bunch of different games that can be intermixed. The cards can switch between different games, and we can tweak it lots of different ways. Some ways it did not go very well. Some of them busted. And so one year we had pocket masks. The idea was someone had donated enough pocket masks that we had one per player. And the idea was that they would use it and it would go into the dirty pile. Well, the volunteer that was in charge of that station gave them all away. And so they were supposed to be legacy pieces that we had now 100 pocket masks that we'd be able to use for future events. And halfway through the competition, I see all these lifeguards walking around with all these pocket masks. And the volunteer had been giving them all to everybody, so they thought that they were theirs. That was a sad day. But we also had a vendor donate some of the equipment. So donate some of the equipment so that instead of having one station, we could have 2 at a time. Or we've had vendors donate significant prizes for the winners or for winners of a certain station. So yeah, lots of different opportunities, but it doesn't have to be massive and huge to start with, for sure. The first year we launched it was just internally. We didn't launch it with anyone else. It was just internally.
And I think we've talked in other webinars too about borrowing equipment, loaning equipment. Even some suppliers will loan you equipment if you're considering purchasing it, or to get it in front of other people. So I posted it in the chat box and I'll add it to the show notes. It's not up yet. We were discussing it during Dominique's session, but the Ruth Lee lifeguard mannequin, I saw it the first time at the Lifeguard Games last year, and I ended up doing a product review, and I ended up doing some YouTube clips that I did post in the chat box. I'll add those to the show notes. but I thought myself fairly knowledgeable about what's out there in terms of mannequins, silhouettes, dummies. And this was like mind blowing for me. I was so grateful to see it at this event, to test it out without committing to purchasing it. Right. So that's how we can see new products, borrow them from other facilities. And I really want to stress, Dominique's mentioned this, but I want to restate this: generic standards and a lot of soft skills. So I, as a trainer, I see so many facilities, they're so uber focused on spinal boarding or splinting or CPR. That has a place, but we also need to think about our soft skills, such as customer service, PR, talking to an injured child, a missing child, being more creative and going back to those lifeguard core essential training ideas we often forget and neglect because we expect our guards to be certified and competent. And then having generic standards, like you said, Dominique, where they're not one agency or the other. It's a flow of, did they talk to the victim like they were a real human being? Did they wear barrier devices of a certain type? Right? Or I love the one you did, Dominique, one year where you actually snipped the shirts on the mannequin, right?
Oh,
that was
Yeah, the CPR mannequins we have a history of just basically pulling the person out of the water, and then you go over to the mannequin and they're already not
naked.
dressed, naked. So what we did was we took a bunch of t-shirts that had been donated or were in the lost and found, and every mannequin had a new shirt on. And so the rescuers actually had to take the scissors and cut the shirt or the swimsuit right up so that they could expose it for the pad placement. And it was surprising how many lifeguards that piece threw them off. They all still succeeded and achieved their goal, but that was more of that realistic piece, like the foam, where something basic as cutting a t-shirt off really did enhance their capabilities for future success.
Yeah, I invigilated one of those sessions, and every single group that came in, they looked at me and they said, "You want us to what?" "I want you to cut the shirt off," and there's scissors on the floor, and almost every group said, like, "Really? Well, I'm going to cut the shirt." "Yes, you're wasting time. Cut the shirt off." So that's something I would definitely appreciate people try. And Dominique mentioned the foam. There is a link in the chat box. I'll reattach it to the show notes. Kelly Martinez was here a few weeks ago. Dominique showed a photo of how to make your own foam. So Kelly Martinez in Phoenix has some great ideas in terms of foam, how to create it so it comes out of the mannequin, tablets that humans can chew. And then we could also, I'm sure in the chat box, have a whole sub discussion about vomit. I know that's one that's come up on the chat on the groups a lot. So like instant chicken soup with nacho cheese powder or dried oatmeal, waving it, and it's just really disgusting. But that's a way to get, candidates thinking like, am I prepared to deal with vomit if it's on the ground? What does that look like? It can be fun, like the wet oatmeal. Is there anything else you'd like to add, Dominique? We've spent a lot of time talking about lifeguard games. Anything you need to circle back on for either that or mermaiding that you'd like to close with?
No, I think that I've talked enough.
I hear you. Okay.
I'm sure they've had a full.
Yes, thank you to Dominique McDonald from Recreation Excellence, which is near Lethbridge, as well as Your Better Life. Links to her sites and Instagram are on the show notes. Dominique, we'll let you go. I'm going to do the last couple announcements for next week. So you can, Vanna, or you can, vamos, give us a break. Thank you so much. Let me give you guys some different links for the sessions coming up this week. I guess it's still Monday, May 4th. So coming up on Wednesday this week, we have Trevor Sherwood. He is an expert witness from Pool Operation Management in New Jersey. He will be discussing frequent mistakes that he sees when he's involved as an expert witness to testify in criminal and civil drowning cases in the United States. So my Canadian friends, I think this is going to be a really interesting session to watch. Obviously, in Canada, litigation is quite different. We have very little, but Trevor is going to be talking about things that he's seen on over 50 cases, just basic tips and tricks and common errors. He's not providing legal guidance. He's just saying, this is what I see. This is what I'm testifying against. So you are informed. On Friday of this week, we have Kate Connell. Some of you will know from the Facebook group Equitable Aquatics. She and her colleague Sydney from the city of Iowa City are going to be presenting a session on the equitable aquatics inventory. This is going to be looking at your aquatics programs more from the standpoint of not just accessibility. That's what Adrienne did a few weeks ago. She's going to be talking about socioeconomic accessibility, other limitations that our programs may not be reaching our members and our clients, such as language, such as service. So super excited to hear what Kate Connell has put together. Coming up on Monday, May 11th, we have Maria Bella from Aqua Conscience. So if you haven't seen Maria Bella, she did present at the AOAP conference in Frisco back in February. She did also present, I saw her at the World Aquatic Health Conference in Williamsburg, Virginia back in October. Maria Bella has invented what she calls her angel silhouette, and it is a realistic simulation of a toddler in the fetal position, and she uses it to do mapping in zones of swimming pools with cameras in different light at different points. So I would encourage you to come out to Maria Bella's session. You can read more about her on their website, aquaconscience.com. There's a video that shows her silhouette and then different services, how they use it, as well as how you can purchase the silhouette and implement a scanning test, zone test at your facility. And then the following Wednesday and Friday next week, so May 13th and 15th are also programmed. I don't have the links right now, but if you are looking for the last couple of sessions that we're adding, all announcements are made on our Facebook page first, or all of the registration links are on the main page for the POOLaide webinars. So I'm going to put that in the chat box in just a second. So all of the show notes, all of the recordings, all of the new registration links are in this last one in the sorry, guys, it shows up as a question. It's not a question. I'm going to pin this main landing page for the POOLaide webinars. As I said at the beginning, we're not going to be continuing into June. There's a lot of webinars, a lot of online training happening. Everybody's getting kind of tired. So we'll be closing this out in the month of May. All of the recordings are on YouTube. Any sessions that you've missed, if you left during this one, you can catch up later, or if you joined late. Everything will be on YouTube in the next couple of days. Just bear with me. I'm still behind. I'm not working as effectively as normally I am. So show notes for Wednesday, Friday today are still in progress. I also did an interview a few days ago with Rashona Hyman of Aqua Essence Swim Academy in Winnipeg. I will be posting that on our YouTube channel. I chatted with her about their virtual babysitting program that they've been running with participants across Canada and the US. So that chat with her will also be on our YouTube channel.